It's good to see you again,
Good
Ruth.
to see you. I'm so glad we can work this out.
Oh, me too. Me too. Thanks for going through all the navigation pieces.
Yeah, definitely. We're glad to have you.
Great.
So you're in Florida now too, right?
Yes, ma'am. Up in Pensacola. Although I would love to be able to be down and visit in Sarasota. It's one of my favorite places.
Yeah, come see me. Let me
Oh,
know.
I will as soon as we can.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
You're supposed to get started at. I think we're going to give it just another minute because we had a little bit of a delay in getting some of the breakout links sent to everyone. So I want to give everyone the best opportunity to join us. Do take advantage of your chat buttons there. Take a minute and introduce yourself. Say hello. Okay. Looks like okay, it looks like almost everyone is here with us.
I believe this is a good one.
Take an opportunity, if you would, to mute yourselves unless there comes a time where you have a question, but we're hoping you'll use the chat function for that. So Kathy, if you're ready, we're going to go ahead and get started.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say good morning to everybody. I am Ruth Frazier. I'm the Chief Development Officer at Senior Friendship Centers and a member of the committee planning today's event. I'm honored to be joining you today as our moderator for this advanced level breakout session, How Experienced Fundraisers Can Up Their Game Right Now. If for some reason you're not in the right breakout room, the one that you selected at registration, please click Leave the Breakout Room and you'll be directed to our main conference room where someone can help you get to the correct session. And as a reminder, this session today is being recorded. So it's my pleasure to introduce your presenter for this session, Cathy Brown. Having worked with Cathy in the past and serving together in another AFP chapter, I know you're in for a treat today. Cathy is the Associate Director of Education at the Fundraising School, Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, serving as lead faculty for many of the face-to-face courses as well as online courses. She previously worked with the Fundraising School in a similar role with a focus on curriculum and faculty development and joined Indiana University in January of 2013. Cathy has a master's in education from Indiana University and a bachelor's in elementary education from Hanover College. She also completed her graduate certificate in philanthropic studies from Indiana University in 2015 and is certified as Associate Professional Talent Development in 2019. Cathy has personally been involved with nonprofit organizations, serving in both leadership and advocacy roles. She will be pausing at times to address questions, so please do utilize the chat feature to submit your questions to me, and then I'll be able to relay them to Cathy. We're really lucky to have her with us today, and I'm excited for her to be able to share her expertise and insights with us. So Cathy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ruth. And good morning, everyone. Welcome. Following Simon is certainly a risk, but I will do my best to see what I can do. I am really excited to join you today. So excited. In fact, I actually did the back of my hair and put shoes on. So just know that I am really happy to be here with you today. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat, as Ruth mentioned. And if they may have mentioned this at the beginning of the conference, but if your name isn't what you want to be called on the video, please go ahead and make that change as well. And then you'll want to be sure that your mic is muted, though, as we said, we will definitely come around to give opportunities for questions as well. Finally, as we get started, the handout that I have provided has a reference list of research and resources that I cite. So know that you will get all of that information as part of the handout. So while you're getting yourself settled, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get ourselves started. All right. And you can see me. Let me get this going here. There we go. All right. Well, as I said, happy to have you all here. We are going to talk today about how you, as more advanced, or I like to say experienced fundraisers, can up your game right now. We'll go ahead and get started. As Ruth introduced me, my name is Cathy Brown, and I work as part of the staff at the Fundraising School, which is part of the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy in Indianapolis, as part of the Indiana University system. I, however, do not live in Indianapolis. I live in Pensacola, so I am a neighbor, so to speak, to your north. And as I was mentioning to Ruth at the start, certainly Sarasota is one of my very favorite places. So while I'm sad I can't be there with you, I am certainly happy to be with you at all, at least in this virtual space. I'm going to be guiding us today through our session with a nod to Indiana native David Letterman as we take a look at the top 10 list of things you can do right now to up your game. I've spent over 33 years, which was a little scary to navigate or to calculate, but in both education and the nonprofit sectors. Most recently, launching a small startup nonprofit in central Indiana that I ran for 10 years before joining the fundraising school back in 2013. But what my bio won't tell you is my why I do the work that I do. My blended family is my inspiration, and I hope you spend a little time each day thinking about your why. And I hope that it makes you smile in the same way this crazy crew does for me. And with that, let's get started. At number 10, learn something new. I know. Even though I can't even see all of you right now, I felt that collective eye roll. But hang with me, because as I just shared, let me show you the why. In Inside the Learning Brain by Nick Dam, he writes that our brains continuously draw on our existing knowledge base to create simple solutions to complex problems. Knowledge provides the building blocks for innovation. Right now, we are being called on to be more innovative than ever. If today wasn't one of the greatest examples, I'm not sure what would be. But that means we should explore every opportunity to add to our knowledge base. And in this time of ever increasing sensory overload, we need well-designed, structured learning opportunities to make the best use of the limited time available and to help build new knowledge. Researchers from the University of Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon University recently published an article that reveals what happens to the brain as learners progress from novice to expert. They discovered that new neural activity patterns emerge with long-term learning and they establish a causal link between these patterns and new behavioral activities. According to Stephen Chase, who is an associate professor of biomedical engineering in the Neuroscience Institute, who was part of that study, he says, we think that extended practice helps build new synaptic connectivity that leads directly to the development of new patterns of activity that enable new abilities. In other words, the brain changes when you learn. It's called neuroplasticity. And it means that when you learn something new, your brain makes new connections. The cognitive neuroscience and the brain imaging technology have discovered how malleable the brain really is and have refuted the idea that a person's mind is fixed or static. You really can teach the old dog new tricks, so to speak. You learn when your brain is active. Your brain is even active when you reflect on your learning. It's all about experiencing learning in an active role. Through active learning, you develop questions about the information you read or hear, an inquiring mind that wonders, discovers, and questions to expand your thinking. An active mind has the growth mindset and is one that knows how to learn, how to unlearn, and how to relearn. Jennifer Goff, according to Jennifer Goff at the Harvard Review. And finally, according to CCSU Business Development, practicing a new skill increases the density of your myelin, or the white matter in your brain that helps to improve performance on a number of tasks. Additionally, learning skills stimulate neurons in the brain, which form more neural pathways and allow electrical impulses to travel faster across them. The combination of these two things help you learn better and even can help stave off dementia. In addition to learning how to add Bitmojis to my PowerPoints, I'm also attempting to learn to cook. Enter in the chat space one thing that you've learned, are learning, or would like to learn soon as part of that active learning process. At number 9, read. As I just shared, through neuroscience, we've discovered that the brain is always changing. Even our hardworking, ever-changing brain, however, needs a break or a vacation now and then. Research has discovered that people who go on a vacation to another location benefit from increased productivity and creativity on their return. But vacation doesn't have to mean travel. Anytime you are otherwise unplugged from your usual routine, your brain will have time to revisit all the new information you've been pumping into your head. Cycling over the new and older neural connections, your brain may even find entirely new connections that didn't exist before. Now, the difference between reading for work and reading for pleasure is significant here. Research shows us that we often remember more of what we read for pleasure than what we are assigned to read for work or school. An independent literature review conducted by the BOP Consulting and funded by Peter Sowerby Foundation highlights the wider income of reading for the wider outcomes of reading for pleasure and for empowerment. Research finds that reading for pleasure can result in increased empathy, improved relationships with others, and reduction in the symptoms of depression and dementia, as well as improved well-being. The relationship between reading for pleasure and well-being is particularly interesting, with evidence showing that correlation between reading for pleasure regularly and lower levels of stress or depression, which could be really helpful these days. Reading also seems to reduce the risk of dementia, and with frequent readers tending to have a lower incidence of dementia later in life. And in addition to the health benefits, reading for pleasure has social benefits and can improve our sense of connectedness to a wider community. Reading increases our understanding of our own identity, improves empathy, gives us an insight into the worldview of others. So give your brain a vacation. Choose something to read, not because you have to or you're supposed to, but because you want to. If you're reading something right now that you love, feel free to share that in the chat space as well. At number 8, revisit the basics. What? When we've been around the block a couple times, we tend to feel we've been there, done that. In employment, essential skills are defined as knowledge and abilities that you must have in order to perform your job well. The exact skills you may have or may need certainly vary widely depending on, in our case, our subsectors, our organizations, and our role. However, there are certain basic skills that are necessary to the performance of most jobs in the development office. So, when was the last time you really looked at your case for support? Why does your organization exist? Why do you deserve philanthropic support? Not what you do, but why. When was the last time you assessed your constituencies in the bigger picture? Who are your people today? When did you last build a gift range chart? I know some of you are throwing things at the screen right now. But when was the last time you checked the ROI and cost to raise $1 for an event or an activity? When was the last time you really spent some time reviewing your stewardship plan? Keeping your skills honed and up to date will help improve your ability to perform your job well and increase your value. If you're seeking a new job, evidence that you have worked to keep your fundraising core skills current will demonstrate your commitment and enthusiasm to prospective employers. And in practical terms, going back to the basics to refresh your skills will make it easier for you to do your job, to stay on top of new developments in the field, and to continue to advance your career. Although it's so easy for us to get caught up in the day-to-day concerns of work, try to find some time to periodically review the basics. Let me pause quickly here and check in with Ruth. Ruth, do we have any questions that have popped up so far? I'm seeing some great examples of books and learning.
We don't have any questions so far, but our participants are, engaging with your questions about what they've learned and read and how they're getting back to the basics.
Fantastic. Well, then if it's all right with everyone, I'll keep going, and that should free us up for a little just general question time at the end. All right, at number 7, self-assess. Psychology Today notes that the novelty of the coronavirus threat, the uncertainty about its behavior, and the necessary adoption of restrictive measures to contain the spread, such as this social isolation, have created unusual conditions giving rise to unprecedented levels of anxiety. Anxiety is that unpleasant sensation that normally serves as a stimulus to take an action, but the very measures taken to curb the coronavirus require that people refrain from most of our normal activity. And as a result, the impact of that anxiety is becoming magnified, and many people are really feeling helpless. Add in the recurrence of racial tragedies, serving as an ever-present reminder of the racial barriers and biases threatening the lives of Americans, and the psychological toll that this takes on its victims, both directly and indirectly. A wealth of empirical evidence demonstrates that experiencing discrimination, especially when chronic, is associated with a myriad of negative physical and mental health outcomes, including anxiety, depression, traumatic reactions, and even psychosis. Social isolation is a severe psychological and physiological stressor, and the stress of isolation is hardest hit to those who, for one reason or another, are already devoting significant energy and resources to adapt to everyday life. Hello, fundraisers. These include, but are not limited to, the socially anxious, the unemployed, those with pre-existing mental health problems, those at risk for domestic violence and child abuse, the elderly, those coping with hearing or eyesight problems, and those even experiencing cognitive decline. And in many cases, these are our people. These are the people we are caring for, right? So in order to best serve those in need, we have to first serve ourselves. And in order to do that, we have to know where we are. The strategy to do that may include a wellness check-in to assess your own expectations during this current time versus the reality. And there are a number of these sort of online assessment tools that you can use for self-checks. Another way to do it is to go old school with the tried and true SWOT analysis. What are the strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? And what are your threats? From that, you can set some realistic working goals and plan to recognize and celebrate some of those key accomplishments. The mantra I've chosen lately is that I choose to focus on what I can control. Do you have a mantra that you're working through that helps get you through the day? If you do, please share that in the chat space now. At number 6, network. Networking formally involves the use of business contacts to acquire advice, information, and referrals when you're job hunting. Your contacts may range from close friends to professionals that you've met previously. However, it's always easier to network with the close friends and family and neighbors. You can also network with fellow coworkers from previous jobs, classmates, and others. As the famous saying goes, it's not what you know, but who you know. Now, I know you know how to network in person. But what about online? Meeting contacts face-to-face, that's sort of the lifeblood of what we do, and it allows us to develop strong bonds, eye contact, handshakes, help people connect in ways that electronic communications really can't. But in-person interactions also provide a really good opportunity to read body language. But networking online serves other valuable purposes. With a wide reach of digital platforms, you can quickly build up a volume of followers. You can reach out to contacts, you can share resources, and really begin to stay in touch. And we're demonstrating that today. The speed and ease of electronic communications may be among the region's CFOs in a Robert Half Management Resources survey most commonly reported email as their favorite way to network professionally. To network effectively, you do have to prepare and practice. This isn't news you haven't heard. But to do this, a script begins to help. Thinking about who you are, what you're doing, a little bit about your why. It may include highlighting education or years of experience, skills, traits, or, and I highlight this, important knowledge that you possess. If you want networking to work, follow-up is also an essential part of the process. We know the power of a thank you note, especially right now. At number 5, volunteer. It's good for your health. No, we're not making this up. Numerous studies have found that when you stop thinking about your own problems and focus on someone other than yourself, your stress levels start to decrease. I know that sounds harsh, as if we're not spending our entire job focusing on others. But take that a little further. If we're focused outside of our own workplace, our own jobs, our own missions, that can also have some stress-reducing benefits. A 2017 study from the BMC Public Health found that volunteering not only improves mental and physical health, but also strengthens our immune systems and our overall sense of quality of life. That's because, again, doing something for someone else interrupts that tension-producing pattern that we typically have and replaces it with a different sense of purpose, positive emotion, and high confidence levels. The study also found that volunteering reduces anxiety and releases endorphins, natural painkillers. It increases our sense of happiness, and I don't know if this will help you all right now, but I know it does me. It actually helps improve your quality of sleep. VolunteerMatch.org currently has over 1 million volunteers needed for virtual volunteer experiences around the country. Anything from grant writing to social media mavens, which is a fun term, to virtual workout partners for the Special Olympics training. There's a wide range of what you can do. And what better way to see how someone else is doing things right now? If you have volunteered outside of your organization during the last few months, please also share it in the chat space. At number 4, self-care. One challenge for many people who recently switched to working from home is continuing to practice that self-care while managing everything else that requires our attention. You may be used to having your home separate from your workspace. For example, you may need to make adjustments to balance your work and home life so you feel able to recharge and start the next day refreshed. According to a recent Indeed study, over half of the respondents said that the best words to describe their feelings toward the current environment included concerned, cautious, and worried. Paired with major change in your work routine, such as feelings may lead to burnout or decreased motivation, already dangers in our field. So taking steps to attend to your own mental and physical health can help you work through the impact of COVID-19 and many of the other environmental stressors on your job. In a recent case study, which in case anyone's not familiar is the Council for the Advancement and Support of Education, in the article, Living in a World of Always On Culture Can Wreak Havoc on You Physically, Emotionally, and Spiritually, Amy Blaschka says, constantly grinding leads to burnout, anxiety, and stress-related illnesses. And that's why self-care is so important. Blaschka offers 5 ways to incorporate self-care into our daily lives right now. First of all, dispel the myth that self-care is selfish. Well, it is, but not the way that you might think. Ask any flight attendant. You have to help others before you help yourself. And when you do that, you operate more at your own full capacity to do your work. That means you show up fully energized, the best version of yourself, ready to tackle the crazy challenges that are going to be thrown at you from a day-to-day basis, and to even help others without sacrificing your own sanity or health in the process. The second one, she says, is to practice self-compassion. Self-compassion doesn't mean pity. It just means treating yourself the way you treat others. It means being kind and caring toward yourself rather than harshly self-critical and framing failures as opportunities to learn, she shares. When you practice self-compassion, you shift your perspective to view progress, not perfection, as what is most important. Third, as well, use your words. The words you say to yourself matter just as much as those you say to your colleagues. Now, again, we're taught to speak carefully and meaningfully to our donors, to our constituents, but we have to be careful to extend that to ourselves. Don't practice the negative self-talk. Make sure that you articulate to yourself and others what you need. Fourth, protect your time. I know we're all smiling at this one, right? Manage your time and your calendar to build in space for quiet and self-reflection. Protecting your time also means understanding who you are and what in your environment boosts or drains your energy, according to Blaschka. That way you can increase or decrease your exposure to those elements. And finally, replenish yourself. It's not about getting enough sleep only. It's about being able to supply your body with all the essentials to succeed. So, in other words, listen to what your body's telling you. Nourish your body with the proper rest, the proper relaxation, nutrition, and movement. Enrich your mind with the education and uplifting things like podcasts, books, TED Talks, articles, videos, Blaschka summarizes. And recharge your spirit through meditation, prayer, reflection, whatever your natural tendency may be, and spend time in nature with visiting with friends and loved ones. Ruth, let me pause here again. Questions or comments that you'd like to share?
We don't have any questions yet. We're getting some responses certainly to your items here. And you did make a comment though, Cathy, about flight attendants. Right?
Yes,
So I
yes.
think the instruction there, do you want to restate that?
Oh,
That
I'm
we're
happy
supposed to take care of ourselves first?
Yeah. The research from that was done that Blaschka did included that, because the idea is that while they do tell us to take care of ourselves first, that is their role is to that they look toward others. So I don't know if that helps clarify that a little bit. But certainly that in the self-care, we have to take care of yourself. Oh, maybe, did I misstate it? I apologize. Yeah, we have to take care of ourselves before we help each other. You put your own mask on before you put on that of your colleague. So thank you for that clarification. I apologize if that was misstated.
That's great.
Great. All right. Other questions? We can even open this at the moment before we continue on. All right. Well, hearing none, I'll keep going. And again, we'll open up toward the end for any other questions or thoughts. So at number 3, give. Now, this is not a shock to anyone listening here, right? The Americans Changing Lives Study is one of the oldest ongoing national studies of social, psychological, and behavioral factors in health. Researchers from the National Institute of Aging started with a representative cross-section of the U.S. population back in 1986 and have followed those survivors for the past 25 years. Among the various things that they found that making charitable donations triggers the brain's reward center, the same way as food or sex. Researchers call it the helper's high. And again, this is not a shock, right? This is the world we live in. I know I don't have to spend a lot of time extolling the virtues of philanthropy to this group. You do this daily. But make sure that you're giving for your personal connections. You give to support the causes that matter to you on a personal level. What do you really care about? Not necessarily what you're supposed to care about, but what's really personally important to you. I know in a community where I lived some time ago, there were many opportunities for giving, as there are in my current community. But one of the sort of publicly notorious or famous places that to be seen was in support of our domestic violence shelter. Now, I will be the first to say I am a big supporter of that service. But the way that was structured was really a who's who list, and you should give there for just for that recognition. It was the place to be seen. You may have organizations like that in your community. You may be one of those organizations, but understanding what that motivation was interesting in the way that many of us engaged with them. So my encouragement here is to think about, don't only support where you're supposed to support, but support where you truly care, because that's what we want our donors to do, right? We want them to be where they truly care. All right, at number 2, teach. The quote, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough, is one that has both followed me through my career and at times haunted me through my career. People often attribute this quote to Albert Einstein, but there has been some evidence that it may not necessarily be his quote. But in any case, regardless of who truly said that first, I believe it's true. In the field of pedagogy, learning by teaching, which comes from the German lernen durch lernen, my apologies to anyone who speaks German well, is abbreviated as LDL, and is a method of teaching where students learn the material and prepare lessons to teach it to other students. There's a strong emphasis on the acquisition of life skills along with the subject matter, and this method is really first credited to John Paul Martin in the early 1980s. The Latin proverb, by teaching we learn, is attributed to the Roman philosopher Seneca. Back then, the idea of learning by teaching was popular enough to be a proverb. Development keeps us in a constant state of learning, right? Especially right now. Dealing with this reality is a challenge in itself, but sharing your knowledge, your skills, and your experiences with others gives you the opportunity to both process and to navigate the learning and materials we're being asked to learn today. And of course, it wouldn't be a fundraising school session without a quote from our founder, Hank Rosso, who believed that fundraising is the gentle art of teaching others the joy of giving. Now remember, mentorship is also a form of teaching. You may not have the time to teach a formal course or workshop, but you can impart your wisdom, your experience, and lessons learned with less experienced colleagues who, without a huge time and commitment. I invite you to think now about a piece of advice or tip that you might be willing to share with others. And if you would, you can share that in the chat space. And finally, the number one thing you can do to up your game today is find joy. New Jersey psychologist Dan Gottlieb notes that while connecting to friends via Zoom and FaceTime helps, sometimes it's just not enough. One of the things I tell my patients to do every day, he says, is to do something they enjoy every single day. The urge to work harder than usual or to clean out the closets is strong, but he says you should do something fun instead. The priority here is not cleaning closets. The priority is getting through this with as much peace as you can. I have to say, I have never met this man, but he is now one of my favorite people because my closets need some help, but he's telling me I don't have to do it. But in any case, listening to music you love, reading a trashy novel, watching a show you really enjoy, this is all really helpful. It can give you a sense of connection and a sense of well-being. A study from the University of Buffalo supports this. It found that so-called guilty pleasures can fulfill a critical social need in ways familiar to family connections, romantic relationships, and even strong social support systems. Shira Gabriel, who is a professor of psychology at the University of Buffalo, has studied the non-traditional social strategies for over a decade. Those can include reading or cooking favorite foods, and Gabriel's latest study compared different ways of filling the social fuel tank, which is a phrase I really like. She found that these strategies can help people feel a sense of connection. And to quote one of my new favorites from one of my new guilty pleasures, the musical Hamilton, and my favorite character, King George, who is also known as Jonathan Goff, he says, follow your joy, always. Think of it, I think that if you do that, he says, life will take you on the course it's meant to take you. So I encourage you here to find what is your joy, and please share that with us as well. I'll stop here with our top 10 list, and I'm happy to open up to questions, additional tips that you might have for each other of things that you can do to up your game. And while we do that, I'll stop the slide share so that we can see each other a little bit better. But
So we do have a question, Kathy, and
great.
my screen just jumped, so let me go back and find it.
Yeah, sorry, I stopped that screen share. So
Yeah, and the whole order just changed,
oh,
so
it does. Yeah,
forgive me.
not a problem.
Can you please give us suggestions to online networking during a work-at-home environment when we aren't able to go out to events or network as we, usually would?
Yeah. What I have seen done, what's been fun for me, because I teach a lot of our courses, actually most of our courses right now online. So I'm getting to talk to a lot of our colleagues really all over the planet, but quite a big focus here in the US. So I'm hearing some really interesting ways that people are doing this. That the meet for coffee is still a thing. You can meet 3 or 4 people for coffee. Literally, bring your Zoom mug. By the way, how many of you have a Zoom cup or Zoom mug that you keep? Cheers with your Zoom mug if you have it with you. Most of us that are doing this on a regular basis have a mug or a cup. So that's a fun opener for people, is to, what's your Zoom cup? Why is that important to you? Mine has a lid so it won't spill. But even inviting people just to meet you for a half an hour just to connect and to catch up. And to segue that a little bit into a donor opportunity, that meeting for coffee is still an opportunity. I'm hearing organizations do that are partnering with local coffee shops to help support local business and sending small bags of coffee to their donors as an opportunity to join them for coffee. But that's certainly a way to connect. The other, just setting times, looking in an environment like we have here, where we have a lot of people in one space, but there's not built in a lot of time just to chat, which is kind of what we miss in these sessions, the hallway conversations, the quick break in between sessions, chats. But being able, to click on 1 or 2 people, send them a quick private chat and say, hey, do you have a couple minutes before this ends or right after this is over? I'd love to learn a little bit more about what you do. That's another way to sort of begin that networking process. And I don't know if any of you are as much of a fan as I am of calendar blocking, but I do try to do that and try to build in time in my work week where I'm going to reach out to somebody I haven't talked to in a while. So Ruth, this does double duty for me, although I do want to chat, a little bit more in depth with you sometime soon. But just to reach out and connect with some of those colleagues, people that you know, and visit for a few minutes. What are you dealing with right now? How are you? One of the most important questions to ask these days. So let me open this up. It's a great question. What are some of the rest of you doing to network in this more virtual space? And feel free to jump right in. You don't have to use the chat here.
Just remember to unmute yourself before you jump right in.
Yep. Oh, I'm reading. Oh, go ahead. I hear somebody's ready.
I was going to say, so we belong to several chambers in the area. So the chambers have been doing a phenomenal job of providing virtual networking opportunities and also committee work. So we've been doing that for all this time. Good.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I know here in Pensacola, there's I guess a regular chamber or the traditional chamber organization. There's a minority chamber organization, and then there's a young professionals association. And both chamber groups have turned to the Young Professionals Association to guide some of the networking that they're doing for all the obvious reasons. And I've only been able to participate in one, but it really is an interesting way. And they're doing this kind of thing, but the comfort, they're keeping the group small, around 8 to 10. It's just an interesting experience. So I wouldn't be afraid to turn to those who are, who have grown up a little more in this virtual space than perhaps a few of us anyway. and connecting in that way as well. Great tip. All right. Looks like there's another one talking about virtual tea parties. That's another great way to do it. On a
Dr.
personal, go
Over
ahead.
at State College of Florida, Dr. Probesfield is our president of the college, and she's known for drinking tea at events. And so we hosted a virtual tea party. We invited our guests to wear their best tea party hats. We sent different tea bags to the guests. And then Dr. Probesfield shared her tea set that had been handed down in her family from many generations, and had an opportunity to talk to the people who attended. We also talked about the students and how they are holding up through this. And it was really a fun event that we would have not met the people otherwise had we not done that. So it was really a fun way to reach out to people and share a moment with them.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Other ideas on networking and or questions? We've got just about 5 more minutes, I think.
Cathy, when you go to the idea of calendar blocking, you use the example of, taking that time out to a specific person. But do you also use calendar blocking for, I don't know, tasks? I haven't done this myself, and I'm intrigued by the idea. But do you also use it to say, set aside time, I'm only going to check email during this hour, or I'm only going to, I'm going to have my phone on do not disturb during these hours, those types of things?
I do, yes. And that is something I had to teach myself when I was running the small nonprofit, as a staff of 1, eventually 1.5. And finally, in the last couple of years, there were 2 of us. And we were fortunate to have a wonderful board. But, you can get, as you all know, you can get sucked down the email trail for hours and hours if you're not careful. And so I do block that. I look at my email first thing in the morning. I look at my email right around midday. And I look at it at the end of the day, and I try really hard. I can't say I'm perfect at it, but I am making progress. As we say, we focus on the progress, to limiting it to that. And it also then, because I have telecommuted for about 5 years now, but there is more pressure right now to be online all the time because all of my coworkers are as well. And so it gives me that sort of freedom. I can finish, at the end of my day, I can clean up any other emails that are left. And then I can turn my my phone down, or I can ignore those little notifications that pop up, and it gives me the comfort to be able to do that. It also helps me because I teach online full time. I right now have 5 online classes going, and another live class outside of this little workshop. So it gives me the blocked time to work on a particular class where I can focus and not worry so much about all the things I'm not doing. And then I can feel accomplished at the end of the day. And that's for many of us that are, that are having to be on all the time, for donors, especially in this newer environment we're in, that can give you some freedom. It's okay to put in your out of office that, you respond to email at these times. So
Cathy?
something to consider. Yes.
Cathy, one of your number 3 was revisit the basics. What are you using for some of the things that aren't as basic right now? I'm looking for some resources that really talk about how we as development officers can utilize the CARES Act and direct our donors to really considering whether 2020 is a good year for them to prepay some gifts in advance, that sort of thing. Could you address some of the resources you use and some of that perspective?
I know that the school has, that we have a number of resources available. I know in my own experience, now I'm not actively fundraising right now. I'm doing more of the instruction and just doing some volunteer work. But I know that I have always made a habit and a purpose of making sure I was well connected to some financial advisors so that I could ask some of those bigger questions and I could have some of those conversations. Were I in that role right this minute, I know that would be, those would be conversations I would be having so that I would understand the intricacies, the way that our donors are now dealing with this and the way that we are now dealing with this. That's a broad answer, and I apologize for that, but I know that the school has some of the newer resources. We're looking at more tools and tips and things that are out there. So keep an eye on the School of Philanthropy website under the research tab, and you'll see sort of the new things that are coming out. They're doing some work right now on the CARES Act. It may even be out. I haven't looked this week.
Okay, super, thanks.
Well, I think that's about all our time before our breakout rooms here are going to end. So I just want to take a minute to thank Cathy and to thank all of our participants for your engagement and your questions. I did get some private comments that Cathy seems to be, it's like you're living right in our own homes or right in our own offices, and how busy we get trying to get things done and that we forget these little things. Yeah. So thank you so much for helping us be better fundraisers and take care of ourselves.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Just keep doing the amazing work that you're doing. We get bogged down. It's so easy, particularly once, again, we've been around the block a time or two. But know that it really does make a difference in the world, the kinds of work that we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So enjoy that and find that opportunity to take care of yourselves.
Thanks so much, everybody, and we'll see you with the rest of the session. Bye.